Today, we're diving into the life of a 20th century saint, a man whose body bore wounds that have just completely baffled doctors and believers for more than 100 years. I mean, think about it. A man who bled for 50 years and yet his wounds never got infected. This is the incredible story of Padre Pio.
And really, this is the question at the absolute heart of his story, the mystery that defines his entire life. So, how could a man bleed nearly every single day for half a century from wounds that just defied all medical explanation? Seriously, how is that possible? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, before we get any deeper, we need to talk about what we're actually dealing with here, the stigmata. So what is it? Well, these are wounds that mysteriously show up on a person's body, and they mirror the wounds from Christ's crucifixion. Now, you got to understand this is an incredibly rare thing, and Padre Pio's case, it's probably the most famous and well-documented case in all of history.
All right, so let's jump right to the moment that changed everything, the event that really put him on the map and made him an international figure, the day these wounds appeared.
So, I want you to picture this. The year is 1918. World War I has just ended. There's this young Capuchin friar, Pio, and he's in his friary, hearing confessions. Then all of a sudden, he feels this intense, overwhelming pain. And when he looks down, he sees the wounds of the crucifixion appearing on his own hands and feet. And this wasn't just some vision, This was a real physical event that would literally define the rest of his life.
And the details of these wounds? I mean, this is where things get truly wild. For 50 years, they bled, almost daily. But get this, despite being open sores, they never once got infected. Back then, that was a medical impossibility. Doctors who looked at them were just stumped. They noted their perfectly round shape, which was weird. And even stranger, people who were near him consistently said the blood smelled like roses. And after its own deep dive, even the church had to conclude they were not faked.
So, to really get a handle on this, we've got to rewind. Go back to the very beginning. Who was this man before the stigmata? Let's take a look at the boy from a tiny Italian village called Pietrelcina.
He wasn't born into some wealthy or powerful family, not at all. His name was Francesco Forgione, and he was the son of peasant farmers. But here's the thing. From a super young age, he felt this incredibly deep spiritual calling. I'm talking by the age of five, he had already decided he was going to dedicate his entire life to God. That's a kind of conviction that's just, honestly, it's hard to wrap your head around.
And his path? Well, it was anything but easy. To help his family make ends meet, he actually had to work as a shepherd, which meant his education got put on hold. But his determination, it was just unshakable. By 15, he joins the Capuchin Franciscans, and this is an order known for being incredibly strict about poverty. Then, in 1910, he was ordained a priest, and that's when he took the name Pio.
But that quiet life of devotion, it was about to be turned upside down by global conflict. This next chapter covers his really short but incredibly difficult time serving during World War I.
So, like a lot of young Italian men at the time, he gets drafted. He ends up serving in the Italian Army Medical Corps. But his health, which was never great to begin with, just completely collapses. He was sick all the time, suffering from these chronic, really severe illnesses that the Army doctors just could not figure out.
So finally, in March of 1918, they just gave him a permanent medical discharge. He goes back to this small, pretty remote friary in a town called San Giovanni Rotondo. And he had no idea at the time, of course, but this place would be his home for the next 50 years. And it's the very place where his life would change forever, just a few short months later.
Okay, so once the stigmata appeared, you can bet word started to spread like wildfire. And pretty soon, this humble friar from a town you've never heard of would become famous for a lot more than just his wounds.
All right, let's jump forward in time to 1947. By this point, Padre Pio is a huge deal. I mean, people are traveling from all over the world just to see him. And one day, this young, completely unknown priest from Poland shows up to make his confession. And this meeting, well, it would go down in history.
So, during their meeting, Padre Pio apparently looks right at this young priest and makes this just jaw-dropping prophecy. He tells him, straight up, you will rise to the highest post in the church. Can you even imagine hearing that as, just a regular priest?
Well, that young priest was Karol Wojtyla. And 31 years later, in 1978, he was elected Pope John Paul II, one of the most recognizable and influential popes of the modern era. Just wow.
And that prophecy? It wasn't just a one-off thing. All sorts of supernatural stories started popping up around him. There were reports from people who swore they saw him levitate during prayer. He was credited with performing these incredible miracles of healing. There's even a story that he was cured of cancer after only 2 treatments. It's just one thing after another.
So, what do you do with all of this? What does it all add up to? Let's take a look at the lasting impact of this, frankly, remarkable and controversial figure. What is his legacy really about?
Okay, and this part is so important. He didn't just sit back and let the fame happen, he actively channeled it into something real, something compassionate. He used all the donations that were pouring in from around the world to build a modern, state-of-the-art hospital right there in his poor rural community. He called it the Home for the Relief of Suffering, and it's still there, still operating today.
And when he died in 1968, the sheer scale of his influence was just impossible to deny. Over 100,000 people showed up for his funeral. 100,000. That alone tells you just how profoundly this humble friar had touched the lives of so many people.
And here, this is where the story comes full circle in the most unbelievable way. In 2002, Padre Pio was officially canonized, which means he was recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church. And the Pope who made that declaration? Well, it was Pope John Paul II, the very same man whose future Padre Pio had predicted in that little friary all those years ago.
But, beyond all the miracles and the mystery, he left behind a really simple but powerful spiritual message, one that still resonates with millions of people today. His most famous piece of advice was just this: pray, hope, and don't worry.
So that's what we're left with. This big question. Was Padre Pio's life a profound testament to an extraordinary faith, one that could actually manifest in physical, miraculous ways? Or is he simply an enduring, unexplained phenomenon that science and history still can't quite figure out? Maybe the answer is he was both, and that's a mystery that is absolutely worth thinking about.